Hi boys and girls, welcome back. And I can hardly believe it, but this is the very last section of the book that we've been having so much fun reading together. We are at an exciting point in the story, that's for sure. Somebody is going to win $1 million. Is there anybody that you think might win? Is there anybody you are hoping might win? There's somebody that I'm hoping won't win, I know that for sure, and I'll bet you feel the same way. Well, let's see what happens when our competition continues. Chapter 38. The following morning, Wolf Adams gathered us all together at the crack of dawn to announce the next competition. Well, almost all of us. Jenna and her dad Rob were missing. Noah whispered that he'd seen them head out on a walk before sunrise. We had to stand around and wait until they finally strolled back into base camp. They didn't even apologize for being late. When the camera switched on, Wolf Adams switched on the charm. For the people who live here in the rainforest, the Amazon River is both a challenge and a key to their survival. It provides food and it provides a means of travel. Today, you will all travel down the river once more, only this time, your teams will be racing each other through a course we've set up. 40 colored flags have been planted in the water, 10 for each team. Your goal is to paddle downriver, collecting your 10 team flags along the way. The first team to cross the finish line with all 10 of their flags will win a 4-course steak dinner with all the trimmings. I need a real meal. Let's win this thing, said Florida, as we lugged our backpacks down to the river. It was the third day, and everyone stank of sweat and morning breath. Well, everyone but Wolf Adams and the crew. I don't know where they disappeared to at night, but they always came back in the morning smelling of soap and minty aftershave. As for me, I was hot, sticky, and dirty. I longed for my remote control. Zapping out of there was way more appealing than a river race, even if there was a chance to win a steak dinner. I decided it was far more fun to watch other people do this kind of stuff on TV than actually doing it yourself. By the time we reached the river, clouds were forming overhead. At the time, I was thankful because they blocked the sun and cooled off my skin. Our metal canoes were lined up single file on the shore. Florida and I climbed into ours, me in the back and Florida in the front. Jenna sauntered over and leaned in close. "Wanna know a secret?" she whispered. "Maybe," I said, because I wasn't really sure I did. "The producers want me to win." "It doesn't work that way, Jenna. It's a competition." "Go ahead and think that. All I want to say is, don't try to save me again." She used her fingers to make quotes in the air when she said the word save. "I don't want you looking better than me and messing up my future. I'm just saying." And I'm just saying, Jenna was one of the meanest, nastiest kids I'd ever met. But I had to wonder, was she telling the truth? Was the show really rigged? Or did she just want me to believe that? Didn't people in the audience have to call in and vote for a winner? I hoped she was only trying to scare me. Everyone paddled into position side by side in the middle of the river. Colored flags zigzagged down the Amazon as far as I could see. Each one was attached to a buoy anchored to the depth of the riverbed. This time, the camera guys were positioned on the shore, poised to catch shots of the teams as we passed by. Noah and Kevin were on one side of us, Victor and Carmen on the other. Victor splashed at the water with his paddle to get my attention. "Psst, watch out for Jenna. She's like Jessie in Team Rocket. She's out to get you, and your camera guy is helping her cheat," he whispered. "Hush, Victor," said Carmen. "It's none of your business." "Whatever." Our camera guy? He must have been the one to show her the aguaje tree we'd found when he told us he needed to go back to get more videotape. It all made sense. I was burning mad. Now, the only thing I could think of was beating Jenna. Wolf Adams pulled out his trumpet and played his horse race song again. We all started paddling hard. "Good luck," Noah called to me. "You too." I tried to concentrate on pulling my paddle fast through the water, but I kept thinking about what Victor had said. Our boat fell behind the pack. "Speed it up," yelled Florida. "There's a steak dinner and $1 million on the line." "I don't care about that. I just want to beat Jenna," I yelled back. "Sounds good to me. And if somebody has to beat her, it might as well be us." I'd never seen my grandmother work so hard. I was impressed. I picked up my pace and we caught up to Victor and his mom. This time, he was actually paddling. "Is that the best you can do?" Carmen snapped at him. "Yes, it is, Mother. Deal with it," Victor yelled back. "Good for you, Victor," I thought. I gave him the thumbs up as we zipped by. Florida and I quickly worked out a system. Whenever we'd come up on one of our flags, we'd paddle at top speed toward it. I'd keep us on course while she reached out and grabbed it. She missed the second one, so we had to backtrack upriver to get it. If you've ever paddled against the current, let me tell you, it's hard work. Of course, they caught it on camera. After that, Florida didn't miss a single flag. We'd gathered 5 of our flags. Halfway there, when we rounded the bend, we caught sight of the green and pink teams. The 2 boats were neck and neck, with Jen and her dad slightly in the lead. The clouds in the sky were turning thick and gray as campfire smoke. Florida snatched our 6th flag. Then I watched with dismay as Noah and Kevin's boat slammed into 2 boulders on the shore. They appeared to be safe, but they were wedged in tight between the rocks. With their paddles, they worked to free themselves. Jenna's boat shot into the lead. "Need help?" I yelled as we raced toward their boat. "No, we'll be fine. Just go get them." "We're on it," I shouted. I paddled faster than I'd ever believed was possible. My arms were so sore I thought they'd drop off, but I kept going. Finally, our red metal canoe swept past their pink one. We were in first place. That's when I noticed it. Our boat had sprung tiny leaks. Dozens of them. Little corks of debris popped up from what appeared to be small, freshly bored holes in the bottom of our canoe. "Don't miss that red flag!" "Forget the flags, Florida. Start bailing!" I shouted. Florida was right on top of it. She threw down her paddle and bailed out water with her hands while I tried to steer us toward the riverbank. The pink team's boat glided next to ours. "Oh, is your boat leaking? So sad. I wonder how in the world that happened. I simply can't imagine." Jenna's lips pulled into a tight, super satisfied smile. Her dad kept his head down as if he was embarrassed to look at us. He paddled hard and their canoe whizzed into first position. So that was why Jenna and her dad had arrived late. They were busy poking holes in our boat and stuffing them with something they knew would disintegrate in the middle of the race. They were trying to eliminate us from the competition. Then, believe it or not, things got worse. While I tried to paddle to the safety of the shore, the sky opened up, deluging us with a dense blanket of rain. We could barely see 3 feet ahead of us. The river transformed into the color of caramel sauce and churned with growing speed. Our canoe was filling up fast with murky brown water. The banks overflowed, sending the camera guys scrambling into the forest. It was a flash flood. As we became hopelessly caught in the current, we lost control of the boat. Up ahead, I could barely make out the pink canoe as it rammed into a log and capsized into the river. Jenna and Rob plunged into the Amazon. I caught glimpses of their bright pink bandanas bobbing up and down as they worked to keep their heads above the raging water. "Help! Somebody, please, help, they pleaded. All the money in the world isn't worth this. We're going to die, yelled Florida. Not if I can help it. Just keep bailing. Use my shoe. I yanked off a sneaker and tossed it to her. Florida frantically scooped out water as our boat barreled ahead. I decided I had to try to save Jen and her dad. I didn't care how nasty that girl was, or even that she told me not to save her. I couldn't let them drown. But our boat was taking on too much water. A swift-moving current swept us far away from them, far away from the watery racecourse, and shot us down a faster-turning fork of the Amazon River. We were headed straight for a waterfall. We'll have to jump and swim to shore, I screamed. I can't swim, Florida cried. You'll have to try. I can't. Hang on to me. We'll jump together. Nobody's doing anything of the sort. I could hardly believe my ears and eyes. I blinked hard, but there she was, as real as could be. Sitting in the middle of our canoe was Rosalie Claire. And she was holding the remote control for the Megapix 6000. I finally found this darn thing and managed to get myself here, she shouted over the fury of the swirling river. Madison, you're going to have to get us out. Florida looked like she'd just seen a ghost. How in the world? No time to explain, I interrupted, dropping my paddle. Rosalie Claire thrust the remote into my hands. I worked fast because we were hurtling toward the edge of the steep, raging waterfall. I prayed that what I had in mind would work. Everyone, hold hands, I commanded. I held tight to Rosalie Claire, and she reached for Florida. My grandmother hesitated, then came to her senses. She clutched Rosalie Claire's hand like a life raft. I balanced the remote on my lap. With my free hand, I pressed the purple button and the silver return button at the same time. The noise of the waterfall was deafening. I couldn't hear if the remote pinged, but as our canoe catapulted over the waterfall, my blurry vision and the ice-cold lightning shooting through my body were unmistakable. I drew my very next breath in Florida's living room. Rosalie Claire was right between my grandmother and me, gripping tightly onto our hands. Water from our bodies pooled on the tile floor around our feet. The expression on Florida's face was priceless. She stared in amazement at Rosalie Claire. I don't think she'd ever been happier in her entire life to see another human being. And I can tell you for an absolute fact, neither had I. Whew. Oh my goodness, that is the very definition of a close one. Well, there are some times when $1 million just doesn't matter. And there are times when an old grudge doesn't matter either. Chapter 39. The three of us fell into one giant, soaking wet hug on the sofa. The red velvet cushions sponged up the murky water from the Amazon. You came back. I snuggled close to Rosalie Claire. Of course I did. You needed me. Leroy scratched at the sliding glass door. Florida said it was fine to let him in, since at that moment we were probably filthier than any dog could ever be. Leroy grinned from ear to ear. He leaped into my arms and knocked me down flat, licking me from head to toe. I didn't mind a bit. I was just as happy to see him too. Good boy, I told him. I missed you. He worked off my soggy red bandana with his teeth and proceeded to shred it to bits. Leroy would have been a better boy if he hadn't buried your TV remote in the backyard, Rosalie Claire said. Or I could have rescued you a lot sooner. So that's where the missing TV remote went. Not long after we pulled onto the highway, I had a bad feeling in my gut. I made the super shuttle driver drop me off just north of Caballo Lake. My old boss from the retirement home picked me up and brought me back here. I was just in time to see the two of you traipsing through the rainforest on TV. By the way, impressive job getting that fire started. I'm proud of you. Thanks, I said. I had a hunch there had to be a second remote around somewhere, since no self-respecting Magic TV would come without a backup. I searched every nook and cranny, box and drawer. Given how many boxes were stacked and stashed around the house, I could only imagine how long it must have taken. When she couldn't find it, Rosalie Clare admitted she was getting worried. It was a 2-hour show and the clock was ticking. Before she knew it, we were climbing into our canoes for the river race. By the way, that girl Jenna is bad news, said Rosalie Clark. The worst, said Florida. Rosalie Clare's lucky break, and more to the point, our lucky break, was when she saw Leroy digging holes in the yard. Tipped off by my intuition, she said. With her shovel, she unearthed sticks, stones, bones, and filthy old computer parts until she finally discovered the remote control, along with 4 pairs of my dirty socks. And Madison, thank goodness you told me how to use that thing, or I would still be trying to figure it out. And we would be at the bottom of a watery grave, said Florida. You're my hero, I told Rosalie Clark as I laid my head in her lap. I think you're both my heroes, said Florida. Then together, we all watched the rest of Stranded in the Amazon episode. Noah and Kevin managed to pull Jenna and Rob to safety. The pink canoe floated off with all their pink flags, never to be seen again. Once the rain stopped and the river slowed, Noah, Kevin, Jenna, and Rob piled into the green canoe and paddled back to base camp. I'm absolutely sure that Wolf Adams had no idea what became of us. At the end of the episode, he announced that Florida and I had to leave unexpectedly because of important family business, and we weren't coming back. It would have been much cooler if he'd said we'd been zapped back to Truth or Consequences by a Megapix 6000 remote control, but how could he have guessed that? And who would believe it anyway? They showed Victor and Carmen having a giant fight on the river. They never got close to finishing the race, and if you ask me, they were the lucky ones. Florida and I decided we'd send a note to the people at the show to let them know we hadn't plunged to our deaths down that waterfall. A few weeks after the final episode aired, Noah sent me a newspaper article that exposed the producers. They really did try to rig it so Jenna would win. Her dad had made a secret deal with them. If the pink team won, they wouldn't take a penny of the $1 million, and the producers would keep it for themselves. In exchange, Jenna would get her own TV show. So I guess Jenna was kind of telling the truth about that part all along. But in the end, Noah and his dad won the $1 million. Noah called me later to tell me they used some of the money to buy their very first house. When the credits rolled, I leaned over, picked up the remote control, and put the Megapix on mute. That's when Florida noticed my Firebird necklace. I'd kept it safely tucked inside the neck of my t-shirt the whole time we were in the Amazon. When Leroy bowled me over with his licking, he must have pulled it free. My goodness, your mother had a necklace just like that. Is that hers? I traded looks with Rosalie Clare, and she nodded to me. This was my story to tell. It was a present from Rosalie Clare before she left for the airport. It's just like the one she gave Mom when she was a kid. I held the charm in my hand. It was the link that tied together my mother, Rosalie Clare, and me. Just a small token to remind Madison how important it is to spread her wings, Rosalie Clare told Florida. It's beautiful, said Florida. Thank you, Rosalie Clare and I said in unison. Now Madison has something to remember me by, she added. Then it struck me. Rosalie Clare was still leaving. I choked back my tears. I wish you weren't going. She slipped her arm around me. I have to, you know. Your destiny, I said, and rested my head on her shoulder. Maybe you can visit, said Florida, if it's all right with Rosalie Clare. There's nothing I would love more, Rosalie Clare said. Me too, I said. You know what, honey, said Florida. If I sell off some of my shopping show stuff, I could buy you a plane ticket. Maybe you can go down there next month before school starts. A funny look came over Rosalie Clare. She unzipped her fanny pack and her lips curled into a knowing smile. You won't have to sell off a thing you don't want to, Florida. Looks like my fanny pack has plans for Madison. She fished out an envelope and waved it in the air. I just found a plane ticket. Can you come for 2 weeks in August? Just like always, Rosalie Clare's magic fanny pack had exactly what I needed. I looked at Florida with my most hopeful expression and crossed my fingers for luck. Of course she can, said Florida. I threw my arms around my grandmother's neck, and for the first time, she didn't pull away. Then she did something amazing. She opened up her arms and pulled Rosalie Clare right into our hug. Only a couple of hours ago, she would have thrown a hissy fit if Rosalie Clare had even walked into our house. But so much had changed. Florida finally saw Rosalie Clare for who she was, not who she imagined her to be. A few hours before, there was nothing in the world I wanted to more than to fly away with Rosalie Clare and far, far away from Florida. But something had changed in me too. I was ready to give my grandmother a second chance. Later that night, when the super shuttle honked its horn, we all hugged goodbye. Florida even blew Rosalie Clare a kiss. My grandmother and I sat together on the sofa, still filthy, but at least we were finally dry. Leroy snored by my feet. An old black and white movie played on the muted TV. Well, we didn't win the $1 million, sighed Florida, as I watched the megapix light flicker on her face. I never thought we would, I said. Maybe I could make $1 million if I sold off all this stuff of mine. $1 million might be a stretch. I suppose, but it's worth a try. And the first thing I'm going to do, get rid of this magic TV. Then maybe your grandpa would have me back. That's worth way more than $1 million, I said. I think you're right. Then my grandmother picked up the remote control and switched off the Megapix 6000 for the last time. Chapter 40. Early the next morning, I dug the Megapix contract out from the bottom of my underwear drawer and read the fine print. The manufacturers of the Megapix 6000 are not responsible for any bodily injury to a viewer or death that might result from teleporting into the television. Boy, I sure wished I'd read that before stuffing it in with my underwear. I kept reading. The return of the Megapix 6000 is only permitted if the buyer has activated the teleportation feature on at least one occasion. No problem there. I'd been zapped or teleported 3 times. At the bottom of the contract was a phone number. Florida called it. Mike answered the phone, and Florida told him she was done with the TV. He said he was happy to hear it and impressed we'd made it out of the Amazon alive. Sounded like he'd been watching us the whole time. The following day, the Miracle Movers truck pulled up to the house, the bell rang, and I answered. "Hey, Squirt, we're here to pick up the Megapix." "Thank goodness," I said. "You had yourself quite an adventure or 3, he said, as he and his partner with the pimples packed up the TV. "I gotta say, Squirt, you're one impressive kid." "Thanks. Turned out to be a summer I never in a million years could have imagined." They were done packing up when Mike noticed there was only one remote. I told him the other one was probably somewhere on the bottom of the Amazon River. "Ooh. We don't have another one. It was just the 2. That'll make it real interesting for the dude in New York City who's getting this contraption next." I wondered what adventure the Megapix would deliver to the unsuspecting guy in New York. As they headed back to the truck, a strange feeling came over me. I ran outside after them. There was something I needed to ask. "Mike, how does it all work? The magic, I mean." "What do you think it is?" he asked. Only one thing made sense. "I think it's kind of like my friend Rosalie Claire's pouch. It's the magic that gives you what you need when you need it. At least, that's how it worked for me with the Megapix." Exactly. One more question itched at me. "How did you know we needed that TV?" "I can't take all the credit. This may sound hard to believe, but it was your mom. She was the one who told me." "Well, she didn't tell me exactly. We magic folks know how to read the messages up in the clouds. And not too long ago, when I was watching them change shape, I got a feeling she was telling me you needed a little magic. I thought the Megapix might just do the trick. But my mom never believed in magic. Did you ever think maybe she knew more about it than she let on?" My mom? I couldn't believe it. Or maybe I could. Thinking back, I remembered that whenever the subject of magic came up, she'd clam up and look like she was holding some deep, dark secret. Maybe someday I'll know why, but today I was just happy to know that my mom believed in magic, just like me. And I was even happier to know that all along, she really was watching over me. Maybe I even knew it that day when I spied the angel up in the clouds. I thought of Mom's spirit floating somewhere high in the sky. I realized she helped me understand that life can actually get good again. Now I know it just gets good in a new way. Mike winked at me as he and his partner got into the truck. I watched it backfire and bounce as it drove away. There was no way that bucket of bolts was going to make it all the way to New York City, and I wasn't at all surprised at what happened next. When it was halfway down the street, the Miracle Movers truck turned all shimmery and wavy like heat rising from a hot pavement. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared right into thin air. I had a feeling it was going to be showing up in New York City any second. And you know what? Before I moved here, none of this would have made any sense. Now, nothing could surprise me. And now for our final chapter, chapter 41. Florida decided to sell off most of her shopping show stuff anyway, just to prove to herself and Grandpa Jack that she was a changed woman. We spent the next few days sorting through her things, trying to decide what she wanted to sell and what she would keep. By the time Grandpa Jack pulled up on Flea Market Sunday, she told him to load up anything that was still in boxes, plus a whole lot more. Grandpa Jack was amazed. "Are you sure about all this, Florida?" "Of course I'm sure, Jack. My TV shopping days are over," she said. "But I am not, under any circumstances, parting with my beauty products. That is where a woman must draw the line." "Fine by me," said Grandpa Jack, and he swept her up in a great big kiss. Grandpa had rented an enormous U-Haul moving truck, and we needed every square inch of it. We packed it until there wasn't a bit of room left and drove one last time to Big Daddy's flea market. Buyers swarmed like bees. We didn't exactly bring in $1 million, but it was enough money to make Florida happy. And you know what? I think she was actually glad to get rid of all those things. "Sunshine, since this may be our last trip to Big Daddy's, how's about you nose around and pick out something special for yourself?" There were not a lot of things I wanted, and not a lot I needed. But what I did want couldn't be bought at any flea market. I wanted Leroy. When I told Grandpa Jack, he grinned. "Let's see what we can do." It was early evening and we made it back to Truth or Consequences. We swung by the computer repair shop. Manny was just locking up for the night. Grandpa tapped him on the shoulder and pulled out a wad of cash. He peeled off a $100 bill. "We'd like to buy your dog," Grandpa said. Manny stared at the money, dumbstruck. "Let me get this straight. You're paying me for that mangy mutt?" "Yes, sir," said Grandpa. "Is that too much? We can offer you less." "No, $100 is fine. He's all yours." And he snapped the $100 bill right out of Grandpa's hands. "Why anybody'd want him is a mystery to me," he muttered. But he didn't know the real Leroy the way I did. That night, Florida cut up 4 juicy slices of meatloaf. She served 3 to us on her china plates in the dining room table and put 1 piece in a bowl for Leroy. It was his very first dinner in his brand new home. Looks like your meatloaf is a big hit with Leroy too," said Grandpa Jack as he watched my new dog inhale his food. "I have to tell you something, Jack. I didn't make it. All this time, I've been buying the meatloaf from the deli counter at the Shore Shave," Florida confessed. "I've known that for years," Grandpa Jack shrugged. "It's still delicious, and you're still my best gal." Then he kissed her on the cheek. And just for the record, this was the first time I'd been with my grandparents when there wasn't a single cross word between them. August came quickly. I woke up early the day I was leaving for my vacation in Costa Rica and gave Leroy a bath. Florida was going to take care of him while I was gone, and I wanted to make sure he wasn't stinky. When he was fluffy and dry, I suggested the 3 of us take a stroll around Truth or Consequences. We walked along Grape Street into town. As we turned onto Date Street, Florida stopped in front of the Family Dollar store. "I'd like to buy you something," she said. "No more buying, Florida. It's just one little thing. Besides, I'm on a mission. You should know by now that when I am on a mission, there is simply no stopping me. I don't need any clothes. I was worried that maybe she'd try one last time to buy me something frilly and pink. No clothes. I know better than that. She pushed open the glass door of the dollar store and marched inside. I followed, tugging Leroy on his leash. We headed straight to the back of the shop. Florida picked up a brand new, regulation-sized soccer ball. I think this ball has your name on it, sweetie. Maybe when school starts, you can join the soccer team. I threw my arms around Florida, and she didn't care at all that I was wrinkling her shirt. Back home, I packed my suitcase. Then I lay on my bed, burying my face in my mom's old fairy jacket. If I really concentrated, its familiar scent of cinnamon and butterscotch had returned, almost as strong as it was when she used to wear it on Bainbridge Island. Florida triple honked the horn of her gold Cadillac. I strapped on my backpack, grabbed my suitcase, and ran outside. To me, the clouds overhead looked like dozens of firebirds taking flight, and sailing among them was one billowy white guardian angel. Leroy was going along for the ride, and he was curled up on the back seat. When I opened the car door, he looked up at me, smiled wide, and thumped his tail. I think he was excited about my adventure. My grandmother backed out of the driveway, and we took off for the long drive to the El Paso airport. We headed south, out of Truth or Consequences, and onto the highway. I couldn't wait to see Rosalie Claire and to meet her new husband, Thomas. And here's the funny thing. I realized that I was actually going to miss my grandmother when I was gone. After all we'd been through, we'd come to see each other in a whole new way. So with the help of a little magic, my life was turning out okay after all. We hadn't been driving long when my grandmother switched on the radio. Dancing Queen was playing. She sang along at the top of her lungs. And this time, I sang along too. Well, we finished the story. I don't know about you boys and girls, but sometimes when I'm at the end of a really good story that I was really swept up in and everything else just disappeared, I'm kind of sad when it ends. I kind of wish I could be back in the story. That's how I felt about spending some time with Madison McGee and reading about her journey. Let's hear for the last time from our wonderful author, Laurie B. Arnold.
Okay, true confession, I have always loved happy endings. You know, in my first few drafts of this book, I actually had a completely different ending. Originally, Florida agreed to let Madison move down to Costa Rica with Rosalie Claire. But after having a few trusted people read the story, they helped me realize that both Madison and Florida had come so far together that their relationship needed to be rewarded. Also, the story is really about Madison coming to terms with her new situation and finding a place that feels like home. And it seemed only right that she should give her grandmother a second chance, particularly because they came to this new understanding. And besides, we all deserve second chances, right? So when I finally finished writing Hello There, We've Been Waiting For You, I realized that I was not ready to say goodbye to my characters and that Madison's story just wasn't finished. So I decided to turn it into a trilogy. The second one, Hello There, Do You Still Know Me, takes place the following summer down in Costa Rica, where Madison is spending it with Rosalie Claire and her new husband, Thomas, and Leroy joins her, of course, as do her best friends Violet and Noah, but not long after they arrive, Florida shows up unexpectedly and crashes their summer vacation. And she's sick with this strange illness she calls the come and go flu, and doctors can't figure it out. But Rosalie Claire thinks she can help because, of course, she's got this magic fanny pack that delivers up things that help people. But when she opens it up, only her cell phone is in there. and the magic has stopped working. The only person she knows who can actually fix the magic is Grandma Daisy. The problem is she's been dead for 5 years. She died at the ripe old age of 93. So the kids have to figure out a way to travel back in time. And lo and behold, the Megapix shows up and they connect an old videotape to it and then use the Megapix as a time machine. When they go into the past, Madison actually gets to meet her mom when her mom was a kid, not older than Madison. And when I was a kid, I used to fantasize about meeting my parents when they were kids. And so that became an element of my book. So how about you? Would that be like a cool thing to meet your parents when they were kids? I think it would be amazing. And then in the third book, Hello There, I'm Coming Home. It's the final book in the trilogy. It's the following summer. Madison is 13 and she's headed back to Bainbridge Island where she grew up with her mom to spend the summer with her best friend Violet. And then Noah and Rosalie Clare are coming too. Oh, and of course, so is Leroy. So Madison now has her own magic fanny pack, and right before Grandpa Jack drives her to the airport so she can fly to Seattle, Madison looks inside her own pouch and discovers there's a photo of a boy with long dark hair, and she can't make out his face because he's wearing a hoodie and he's kind of looking down, but she knows in her gut and her heart that she needs to find him and help him. And what she discovers has the possibility of changing her life again forever. So if you want to continue reading more about Madison's magical adventures, you can order these from Amazon or from your local bookstore and you know, find out what happens next. Okay, guys, I want to thank you so much for listening. A humongous thank you to Miss Josephine for reading the story. And if you have any questions for me, you can reach out to me on my website, lauriearnoldbooks.com, and click on Write to Laurie. It's right here, and I promise I'll write back. Okay, take care. Bye.